Yes.
Okay, unless it says 1915, we're starting on the agenda.
Yes.
Right, okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome, thank you for joining us tonight. This is the Town Matters meeting of Frome Town Council. My name is Nick Dove and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. We want to make sure that all our meetings are available to as many people as possible, regardless of where you are. So we're using a hybrid setup so it's available for us in person here in the town hall and online on Zoom for people who want to join us from their homes or workplaces or whatever. For those in the room, just need to remind you, I think you've all been here before, but just some housekeeping effectively, which is the emergency exit is in the rear corner of the room. I say rear, it's behind me on my left, and the assembly point is in the car park. The toilets can be accessed at the end of the corridor on the right-hand side, and there's an accessible toilet to the right of the lift. Can I just confirm everyone can hear me? Yep, thank you very much. For panelists on Zoom, please use the electronic raise hand symbol by clicking on the participants button at the bottom of your screen. For those in the room, please raise your hand. Because it's two sets of things to look at, please, if I've not noticed, wave a bit more vigorously. For attendees on Zoom, please can you pose any questions you have through the Q&A board. Attendees' names will become visible on the questions board for the record. And as your question is answered, for those attendees in the room, please raise your hand. Tonight, Paul, Will, Clark and Kate will manage the slides and Sarah will manage the questions board and participant settings. The meeting will be recorded for minuting purposes, and we will also live stream, or we are live streaming to our YouTube channel. Okay, let's make a start then. So this is the Frome Town Matters Committee of the 6th of October. First of all on the agenda is apologies for absence and declaration of councillors' interests.
Yeah, I've got apologies from Rich Ackroyd, Rob Collett and John Nelson.
Okay, thank you very much. Any declarations of councillors' interests, please? From Ali?
On the grants committee, I'm a director of the Fair
Housing for Frome? Fair Frome?
Frome area.
Frome Area Community Land Trust. Right, okay, thank you, Ali. Lots of acronyms on it.
Freeze.
One of them, you could have said it in Spanish. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? I can't see anyone else on the screen or in the room. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, if we could then go to the minutes of from the last meeting, which was on the 4th of August, 2021. So for accuracy, here, page 1, page 2, page 3, and page 4. Okay, I can't see anyone raising their hands in terms of inaccuracies, so thank you very much for preparing them, putting them together accurately. So can I please have somebody who would propose? Steve, Tanner, thank you very much. And a seconder, I can see Scott. Thank you very much indeed, Scott. Thank you. So that was, I think, just have to vote. Okay, sorry, yes, if you can all vote to approve them, please.
So that's, as Ali's just said, that's a majority because you weren't there.
My apologies, Nick. I think I should declare my interest as a director of Fair Housing for Frome within the grants committee.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Anita. Okay, if we can now move to item 2 on the agenda, and that's do we have any questions and comments from the public and councillors? If I can start with, has anyone from the public joined us on this, Sarah? No? No? Okay. So how about councillors in the chamber or on Zoom? Do we have any councillors who joined us on Zoom?
Can't see anyone with a hand up.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Lido. In that case, we'll move to item 3. This is a presentation from Adventures Laura Emptage. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, Laura. But it's on the Kickstart apprentice scheme. Looking forward to hearing it. So over to you.
Okay, I'll try and share my screen.
Can you try again? I'll just try turning you up.
Can everybody see?
Yes.
Super. There we go. Loading up. Okay, so thank you for having me along to tonight's meeting. And I'm just going to quickly talk through Adventure Froome and what we've done with the Kickstart scheme. And that's a picture of some of our students in our outdoor classroom. To start with, I'm just going to briefly give you an overview of Kickstart for some of you that might not be aware. It's a government-funded placement. So it's a government-funded scheme, which funds 25 hours a week for a 6-month work placement at the national minimum wage. Employers can choose to bump up the hours and top up the pay at their own cost. So some employers have done that to make their job placement more attractive. And it's eligible to those people that are on universal credit that are facing long-term unemployment, aged 16 to 24. And this scheme was brought about in response to COVID and that age group being more affected by unemployment as a result of the pandemic. And we have a group of employers at Adventure Froome, and we're a gateway where we look after a number of employers. I think we've got 24 at the minute to create work placements in and around Froome. And if you're a part of our gateway, you have access to our training program for the Kickstarters, and you get some support for us as well. So we'll do all the onboarding for all employers to join Kickstart, and then we'll support them through the recruitment process with the job centre. And then also any issues that they might have along the way during their 6-month placement. The Kickstarters receive 2 hours of training a week to help improve their employability and their confidence in the workplace. That's something that we deliver at Adventure Froome, and it's something that our employers get if they're a part of our gateway. This is kind of just an overview of the sessions that they get with us if they come to training through Adventure Froome. As it's every week for 6 months, there's 26 sessions, and we cover a lot of things during that time. We work on things like safeguarding, so adult safeguarding, how to be safe on their work placement. We talk a lot about well-being at work. A lot of these young people have been off and not doing anything for a really, really long time. So it's kind of looking at mental health and what we can do to support that while they start their work placement. And again, we work on building confidence, because again, some of the people that we work with haven't got a lot of confidence in the workplace. And we've built in lots of reflection. So they will reflect on their employment, on their work placement, and on their experiences in the workplace thus far, and what they can do to kind of maybe improve themselves as an employee. As we are Adventure, we are teaming up with lots of organisations and employers that share the same ethos as us around the green sector and promoting sustainability. And so we invite some of our organisations in to talk about their sector in the green economy. So that's really nice. And that leads on really nicely to the climate project. So we've ran a 6-session climate project within our training program for Kickstart. And essentially we want all our Kickstarters to complete a climate project. So they'll identify an area in their organization that potentially could be improved on to make their employer more green and sustainable. So that kind of features throughout the training program. We do managing your time. We do some things on entrepreneurship, which Johannes runs. They all get a first aid certificate. We've worked with Gumption to do a social media workshop. Jean, who's one of our directors, does a session on building community resilience, which is awesome. And then we get into the employability stuff, which is kind of tied with the funding for Kickstart. So we look at careers, how to apply for a job, CVs, interviews, interview technique. And again, they have a go at interviewing someone rather than being interviewed themselves, which has been quite fun. And then we're working with a number of organisations to kind of work on their next steps. So that might be some set skills and learning, other employers. And actually what we found is quite a lot of the employers are keeping on their Kickstarters post 6 months. So that's really nice. Here are some of the here's some photographs of the training and action. So we've got a reflection session there with Neil Oliver, who's one of our directors. We've got Become an Entrepreneur with Johannes. And that's some of
Sorry, Laura, can I just interrupt? We're not seeing any of your photos, I'm afraid, at the moment.
Are you not? Oh, I'm so sorry. They're up on my screen. Don't know, can you see these ones?
Oh, yes, we got them now, thank you.
Okay. So that's the session there with Gumption, social media, with wonderful Jenna. She's been awesome. And then that's some of the students working on their climate project. Hopefully you can see these as well.
No, it's blank screen again.
Blank screen again. Oh, that's annoying. How about these ones?
It says first aid on the top, but there's no picture.
There's no picture. Oh.
Got some now.
Lots of students doing some first aid. Apologies, you can't see the pictures. Can you see this slide okay?
Yes, we've got two on build your confidence and safeguarding.
Okay, you're a bit behind me then. Okay, I'm just going to stop moving the slides about and hopefully it'll catch up. There should be a slide showing climate project.
Yeah, we've got that.
Got that one, okay, yeah. So apologies for not being able to see the pictures, but there are some great pictures of the Kickstarters in their training. We've been in an outdoor classroom that we built in the car park so we could get cohorts of 11 students. So we've got 3 groups of around about 10 or 11 that I see every week, and they run through that 26 session program. And this is briefly an overview of our climate project. So it's run very much like an adventure startup course, and they'll come in, identify, learn about climate change, and talk to their employers about the project. All the employers that I've spoken to are really on board with the climate project, and in joining us as a gateway for Kickstart, they've all agreed to be a part of it, which is really super. They'll generate some questions, they'll come up with some ideas, they'll plan their climate project, they'll go ahead and they'll do it, and they'll come back and reflect and celebrate on what went well and how they made their employer more sustainable. And some really good things have come out of that. We've got at the Walled Garden in Mells, they've made a composter. So they've got 1 kilogram of worms in and made a big composter, which is really awesome. There are lots of recycling schemes up at Dress Myself. We've got electric vans that are being brought in at the Rye Bakery. So some really good ideas coming through for the climate project. In terms of who it's helped, we have managed to fill 39 placements. So 39 people have gone into work in and around Frome, with 24 employers. I put and counting because we're creating more placements and we're trying to get more employers to join us. And those are the 24 employers that we've worked with so far. We've worked with more, but for whatever reason, they've decided to withdraw from Kickstart because they maybe didn't find someone that was appropriate for their work placement, or they decided not to continue with Kickstart anymore for other reasons. But these 24 employers all have 1 or 2 or more placements, Kickstart placements with them at the minute. And these are a few case studies. We've got Jake, who was at the Walled Garden. He'd been unemployed before. He was made unemployed as a result of the pandemic.
Sorry, Laura, sorry to interrupt you again. We've just got the names, the text, no photos, if they're meant to be photos behind.
Yeah, they are on my screen, so I'm not sure why they're not popping up on your screen. So hopefully it will catch up, but apologies for that.
Okay, we can imagine. I think everyone knows the Walled Garden.
Yeah. So yeah, so Jake's at the Wall Garden. He has gone off to do a PhD in September. So last month he went off to start his PhD at Southampton University. And like I said before, he was made unemployed as a result of the pandemic. Bex, she's at the Good Journey, and she's actually going off to travel around Europe after Kickstart. And again, she was unemployed as a result of the pandemic. He got Sylvie, and she was in our in the Froome Times. She was an article that went into the Froome Times about Sylvie. And again, she lost her job as a result of the pandemic, and she's actually working in Bristol now. She got a job in a similar organisation to Adventure in terms of managing a hub space. So it was really good that her experience with Adventure gave her the ability to apply for that job. And she had aspirations to move to Bristol, and she's got the job in Bristol. So it was really helpful to see her move into a role that she gained experience in with Kickstart. So that was awesome. There are a few other people. So Liv at the Garden Cafe, she's staying on there. We've got Tom at the Rye Bakery, he's staying on there. And we've got Hazel at I Dress Myself, and she's staying on there. And Alex is another person at the Wall Garden, and he's staying on at the Wall Garden as well. So it's really great to see that at the minute, and we're seeing one group finishing Kickstart. So we're just trying to figure out, where they're going, and actually a lot of them have plans, and a lot of them are staying with their companies that employed them for Kickstart, which is really good. For the future then, we've just been, literally this week, it's been announced that funding is being extended to March 2022. However, all applications for Kickstart scheme from employers the deadline is for 17th of December 2021. So we need to kind of get all organised for that date. The funding was going to end the end of December this year. So they've extended it, which is really good. And we were hoping for them to do that. So it's good that we've got that extension. We still have 16 live placements and about 4 to go live. So we have 20 placements to fill still. And we're hoping that number will increase as we add more placements and employers before the deadline. And we are continuing to support Kickstarters with their futures post Kickstart. So, we have Roots and Cassie, and we're working hard with at the minute, we're doing really, really well that all Kickstarters have a destination to go to, but other groups might be in different situations. So, we're putting a support system in place for them for when they leave with Roots. And really what I'd like to ask you guys today is if you know of any organisations that would like to get involved, because we have a deadline of the 17th of December, and we would like to generate more placements for young people to get involved with before the funding finishes in March 2022. And that's me.
Thank you very much indeed, Laura. Just to follow up on your last comment, I mean, if I was meeting a local businessman or woman this afternoon or tomorrow, what would I say in a sentence or two to encourage them to join? What is it? What's in it for them, if you like?
Well, they get a fully funded person, aged typically 18 to 24, and for 25 hours a week. And they will get fully supported by Adventure Froome. So that young person will go through employability training. The organisation will get the support from us with all the paperwork. We do all the paperwork. We work with them, the job centre, to recruit a young person. And then if there are any kind of issues, then we're there to support them with, there haven't been many issues actually in terms of Kickstarters turning up to work or being late or having poor performance. It's actually been really, really good. But if there are any of the kind of performance related issues, Venture is there to support the employer with that. So it's a win-win really. The employer gets a young person who will have lots of skills and they'll have the opportunity to develop a young person's skills in their organisation, essentially for free. And they'll have the support from Adventure as well. But to attract young people to their posts, we encourage employers to bump up the salary from national minimum wage and potentially offer more hours than the 25 employers.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Laura. Thank you. Right, any other questions for Laura, please? Can't see any hands. I guess that means your presentation was so complete and fascinating that you've covered all the points. You stunned us into silence. Laura, thank you very much indeed. I learned quite a lot from that. That's really interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Sorry, it's photos. I'll have to share them with Vivian, and then she can send them around.
Thank you. That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank
indeed.
you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, just a point I wanted to make now. I noticed on the top of my screen it says the Town Matters meeting starts at 19:15, whereas on the agenda it says 7 p.m. I think it's just something for us to sort out later on. It wasn't. It's just for your benefit, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed again, Laura. Thank you. So if we now move on to item number 4, which is an update on Froome's play strategy.
Second?
Is 15 something between, or is that later?
No.
Fine.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah, I think I was just going to follow on with an update after Adventure.
Okay, sorry, Viv. I seem to remember something. That's my fault entirely. I forgot. Yes, please, Viv. If you could.
No, I just thought I would just jump on the agenda while I was. So it was a bit last minute, but it was just following on because Adventure are part of our vocational training group. And at the last update I gave, we said we were going to launch Spring Forward, hopefully at the Fun Day Carnival. So, Laura, have you got a slide from? There's a little slide from the Fun Day. You were able to get that up.
There we go.
There you go. Sorry, it's a very short update, don't worry. But it was just say we had a really successful day at the Fun Day. I think about 1,000 people came to the event, and talking to the people who had a stall with us, we felt that actually the people who came to the event are very much the people we would like to target. We had a Job Centre Plus of us there as well, and we felt it was a good event to go to, probably actually better than trying to have our own training event, which a lot of people who came along didn't necessarily know they wanted training. So it was a good introduction just to start talking to people, and we'd be keen to repeat something similar again, maybe if the Film Carnival does do it. We had on our stall, we had Bath College, and they were promoting the courses that they do, but also in particular the courses at Radstock College, because they have a bus service running from Frome to Radstock where they do a lot of construction. And as you see in the picture there, we had some stonemasonry going on. So it was an interactive session where you can come on and do a bit of stonemasonry. And actually, it was a great way of just getting some captive people, because it did take a good 30 minutes to do the stonemasonry sessions that we gave them, just like lettering and numbering plates. We also had Somerset Skills and Learning with us. They had their stall as well, and the feedback from them was that it was a great way of getting to talk to people and talk about the training they're doing in Frome and hearing about what training people might want as well. In addition, and I think one of the key things was a lot of the members from the vocational training group came together, and we haven't met each other for over 18 months, and actually there's been some new members of the group who we've never met. So we just had a really enjoyable day getting to know each other on the stall. And because of the event, we also got some resources produced. So you can see on the right, we've got a new leaflet produced, which is very kindly paid for by Mendip District Council. So we've got lots of them now. So the idea is that we could start doing more events and go out and really start promoting the Spring Forward, which is like a way of signposting to all the different training providers in the town. Thank you. And then there was just one other update I wanted to give you as part of our vocational training group. We have Critchell School, and one of the great things that comes out of this group is sometimes you never know what's going to rise, and Critchell School was saying one of the key things they want to give their form children is as much work experience as possible. So they have a catering van, which does lovely paninis, and they have been doing the Wednesday market, but they felt they wanted to give them more experience. So they asked us if we could find them a space to maybe do for another day of the week. So we were looking at locations around town, and we said, well, what about Boral Cross? And it's been a great experience for us, the town council, because it's given us a chance to see how it works, getting somebody on the Boral Cross and managing that relationship with them. They have absolutely loved it, as you'll see in the video in a minute. they've been able to put up their tables and chairs and make the space really come alive. And I think the young people who've been working in the van have really appreciated being in the town centre and really visible and just being really connected to what's going on in the town. So I would, if Laura's happy to try and play the video, I'm afraid it's not wonderful. So what I would say is, if you don't catch it all or you want to see it again, it was recorded by BBC Somerset, and they put it up on Facebook, so I can always send a link around to everyone, so you can watch it more clearly, but hopefully it will work this time.
There's your coffee. Very much. We have been giving customers their teas and coffees and serving them sandwiches and cakes. It'll help me get a job when I'm older in a cafe or a restaurant, and it'll give me some great skills to know about everything about cooking and all that.
There we go. Our learners really enjoy being able to interact with members of the public. There's a real sense of community within Froome. We have customers who regularly come back and support us. It allows us to build relationships. We also attend other community events. It's just a really fun way of learning.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Laura. And so, yeah, that's just one of the things that sometimes from this vocational training group, new ideas come up and new initiatives, and as a group we try and work out on solutions. And certainly at our last meeting, it has been running now for 2 years, I think, vocational training group, we said, is there an appetite to keep it going? What do people like most out of it? And everyone said they just love the opportunity of coming together, hearing about challenges, coming up with solutions. And really it's an opportunity for everyone just to hear what problems people are seeking and what training opportunities and what gaps there are. And so we are very keen, I'm sure Maxine will agree, in just keeping the momentum of the group continuing.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Viv. Sorry I missed you out on that. So thank you very much. Great. And I've seen that van there a few times. It's great. It's great to see the ball cross space used like that. Thank you. Right. Unless there's a question from Steve. Yes. Laura, can you just confirm when the van's at Balls Cross again? What days of the week?
So it's going to be at Ball Cross on Fridays. And then it is also down at the Wednesday market as well. So Wednesdays and Fridays, if you want a really nice coffee.
Great, thank you.
Or a good panini as well.
Okay, any other questions for Viv? No? Okay, thanks very much indeed, Viv, and thanks again, Laura. And if we can now move to item 4, which is an update on Froome's play strategy.
Hello. So we're going to do this between 3 of us. It's myself and Lucy from Children's Scrap Store and Nikki Cox, who joined us really very recently and has been thrown in at the deep end with this piece of work. So Nikki has been covering Jess's maternity leave since the beginning of this year. And really her primary project is the play strategy. So she will tell you more about it, but I'll tell you a bit about where it's come from. Over the course of the last few years, as you know, we've been building a programme of work around children and young people's and their families, and looking at where the gaps are, but also thinking about what the possibilities are. So what we've seen across Froome is that there are loads of opportunities, there's loads of things happening, and actually across our work streams, there are loads of things and areas that might be better supported if we brought them together. So it seems a bit obvious really to look at a play strategy that cut across our work in communities, our work with children and young people, how we manage our parks and open spaces, and how we work with businesses. So the ambition of this play strategy is that we will come out with a series of recommendations and a view of what we need to be shaping. So creating a playful town for children and adults alike is not just a nice thing to do. There's lots of really sensible and rational sort of arguments behind that of why play is important for a young person, an adult, and older people alike. So I am going to, we came to you in September 2020 with the notion of a play strategy. We put that out to tender and we had a really clear brief for it. And Children's Scrap Store were one of 5 organisations that tendered for that piece of work with an impressive tender. And we interviewed them and they were successful in getting that piece of work. So I'm going to hand over to Lucy. But also, can we bring the slide up, Laura, please? And if we then, as we go through, we'll tell you when to click onto the next slide is probably the best thing. So Lucy's going to tell you a bit more about what Scrap Store have been doing and why.
Thank you, Kate. Welcome, Lucy.
Hello. I have to say I'm slightly distracted by good coffee and paninis, but I'll get back on track. So yes, it's been great to work with such a progressive town like Frome and to think about a play strategy, obviously, because we talk a lot about play at Children's Scrap Store. But what's been really good is to work on a play strategy that isn't just for children. So as Kate mentioned just then, thinking about children, but adults and older people alike. And actually the fact that we're looking at this across the life course is really exciting. And thinking about how play, you know, I guess invariably when you ask adults what is play, they think about children and they think about what children do and where children do it and what might be needed for them in order to facilitate play. But actually there's so much more we can think about in terms of play from an adult's perspective. Kate, do you want to knock on the slides? I feel slightly blind because I'm not sure what's coming next. Ah, there we go. Look at that. We're a 3-hander with little time for preparation, sadly, due to COVID. So yeah, I thought it was useful just to set a little bit of context about play, because obviously we do often as adults think about play as being something just for children. But actually what we've started to do through the consultation, thinking about strategy, is start to raise awareness and remind adults about their playfulness, I guess, and thinking about definitions for play. So before we can do any work on play, we've got to get more of an idea of what we mean by play. So we've used, there are quite a few definitions out there. We like Play England. We think about, you know, play is what children do, basically when they're not being told what to do by adults. But I think, you know, we could flip this for adults and think about play in terms of how we as adults spend our free time. You know, what do we do when we're not working, when we're not looking after others, when we're not doing life admin, domestic chores, whatever, you know, whatever the constraints are, what do we do when we have time to ourselves to choose? So a lot about play is about choice and freedom to choose. So again, you know, children comes to mind, but actually in our adult lives, what do we do when we get those opportunities? So that's kind of setting the backdrop, if you like, and this definition and others, actually everywhere on this slide where it mentions children or child, we could swap out for adult or people and it would still read and it's still just as important and meaningful. Do you want to knock on the slide? Oh. Great, thank you. So again, just delving in a little bit more to, you know, what does quality play look like, and thinking about the benefits of play. You know, there's a plethora of benefits for all of us, but again, you could look at this slide and, you know, there's nothing on here that is just pertinent to children. Again, it's relevant to whatever age, so for adults, older adults, and obviously for children as well. So with this many benefits, it's really important that, you know, everybody can tap into them. We also know there are other wider benefits of play provision in terms of, you know, the buildings and the facilities that are used by play services are frequently seen as focal points in the communities, opportunities for social interaction, wider community cohesion, bringing people together, thinking about public outside spaces and their role in terms of what they provide for the whole community, particularly places for sociable time, you know, meeting friends,
again, children, adults, whoever. So the strategy is going to keep all of these benefits in the forefront, and help us to think, that excitingly about everybody. So making Frome a playful town and what that means to whoever you are. So that's kind of what we've got in the forefront. So I guess we now go on to how we've done that, or how we started to do that. Obviously the strategy is not finished yet. So we're in, we've done an initial consultation, and we're just sort of in the next stages of that. Kate, do you want me just to keep going?
Nikki's going to tell us.
No, I'm here. I'm here. It's okay. I have got really unstable internet, so if I disappear, well, I just hand the baton back. Can I have the next slide, please? Great. So this is the Choose Play campaign. So this was when I started in June. This was kind of the piece of work that was handed to me, which was quite exciting because I've worked with Scrap Store before. So that felt like it was going to be a positive relationship from the start. So it was really about introducing the concept of Choose Play. We worked with the comms team to kind of, pepper this through their social platform. So we basically bombarded people with it. We every link we could get it out there. We did, on the town council networks and any contact, basically anybody that would listen to us and give us 5 minutes to talk about play. So we were having conversations with stakeholders, statutory services, lots of conversations with schools, residents, PCSOs, whoever really. And it was about having those meaningful conversations and, kind of the aspiration of Frome as a playful town, but also to fit with the agenda of other, because there's lots of other town council projects. So, fitting in possibly with the work that Helen's doing, the Wild About Trees officer, and looking at play streets. So ultimately kind of weaving play into the foundations of other projects. And also we had a lot of update meetings, because we were working through COVID times. So, there was a lot of making sure that we were kind of ensuring that the strategy deadlines were met. Can I have the next slide, please? I don't know who's got it. Okay, so we were everywhere, but initially we launched the Choose Play campaign at Picnic in the Meadow, and you can see some of our D&V volunteers. Oh no, what's happened? Some of our D&V volunteers here who were out asking questions. So it was young people asking residents what they thought about play, and actually that was really fruitful because it's really hard for people to not engage with children, so that worked really well. So we were at Picnic in the Meadow, we were at Play Day, Children's Festival, Carnival Fun Day. So basically we were kind of creating opportunities to have conversations that was kind of really meaningful. If you can go on to the next slide, that would be great. So this is National Play Day. So, and I didn't know because I've come from working in Baines and Bristol, but Frome's never done a National Play Day. So it's a national campaign to kind of promote play. And it was really well received. Sorry, my son's just going to walk past. So, it was really well received, and it was kind of raising the profile of play. And, we were out and about. We had
Nikki, you're frozen.
Pinched your internet.
Yes.
Do you want to carry on, Kate?
Can I have the next slide?
Back.
Nikki, you froze. Turn your camera off and see if it's any better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, the next slide, please. Okay, so we were also in conversations with residents, and we were, me and my jobs share Melody were in the town on several market days. We were at the Rye Bakery, we were at Park Run, and this is one of the things that we went to, which is a pop-up scrap store, and that was in conjunction with the Pod Youth Club, and that was really kind of looking.
Nikki, I'm going to take over for you because your Wi-Fi's gone.
Lose parts play and creative play. Oh. Okay.
I'm going to take over from you, Nikki, and you'll have to chip in either in the chat or at the end if I miss anything. So, as you've heard, there's been an enormous amount of work that's taken place. And that's been in conjunction with Children's Scrap Store, informed by Children's Scrap Store, and a series, if you like, of opportunities to talk to people and gather their thoughts, which will now be followed up with some next steps and consolidated. But Lucy, it would be good to hear from you just really briefly what your initial findings are, and I think the next series of slides will.
Okay.
So Laura, could you click through to the next one?
Great. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, this just recaps the survey where we've taken it. So in terms of consultation, as Nikki said, all of the events listed. Perhaps if you knock on, I think we've probably explained that one. Great. Okay. So in terms of back one to the map. Thank you, sorry. In terms of coverage of the survey responses, so we've taken a map of Frome here and just pinpointed where the survey responses have come from a postcode point of view. So actually you can see there quite a good breadth or a good spread across the town. If you knock it on one, Laura, is it Laura who's controlling? Sorry, I don't know who's got it. Thank you, Laura. Again, this just shows us the age ranges of that survey. So the biggest age group, 35 to 44, and then you'll see others. Next biggest, 25 to 34 or 45 to 54. So it's given us a good spread. Obviously, our experience, we know a lot about what children need for play, but it was really good to get more adult perspectives. Once we'd had those conversations about what play means, because actually when you approach an adult and ask them how they spend their time, how playful are they, what do they do to play, we did have those kind of conversations about what it means and what it means to each of us. So once we'd got through that and got people thinking about, okay, this is what I do, this is how I play, they were forthcoming with things that they already do, the sorts of things they enjoy in Frome, and then we talked about, COVID aside, how would you like things to be? What would you like on offer that perhaps isn't currently, or what are the barriers to things that are on offer that you don't feel you can access? So those kind of discussions have informed what we're thinking about. I think the next slide will take us on to the recurring kind of top level themes. Yeah, okay. So this is by no means exhaustive list of what's coming out of this survey, and it's in no particular order, although saying that those first 4 bullet points are all water related. There's quite a strong urge across Frome for either cheaper or more accessible swimming sessions at the swimming pool, or access of some kind into the river to get river swimming, or for play in terms of children accessing water in a play space, be it through a splash pool pad type setup, or just having access to water to play. Climbing is featured, and I realise you have an indoor climbing facility now that has opened up since we've started this survey. There were some themes coming through about climbing in terms of being outdoors and perhaps more incidental opportunities. Challenge and adventure this is kind of a theme, an overarching theme that we've pulled out, a desire for more challenge for older children in play spaces, but also for adults to access sort of play equipment or natural sort of organic opportunities for adults to be adventurous and be physically challenged in outdoor spaces. Support for play, that's come through in terms of adults supporting children or other adults to perhaps learn a new skill or consolidate a skill, become more confident in something, be it accessing something that's already in situ, like the skate park, for example, or having more opportunities to try things out. Ping pong tables, board game pop-ups, those sorts of things were mentioned under that. But having support around how you know, how do you play chess? I'd like to sit around a table after watching the Queen's Gambit and play some chess, but I don't actually know how to. So how can I do that? Those sort of messages were coming through. Accessible play equipment, being able to access, particularly in parks. You know, how can we make sure everybody can access the same level of thrill and challenge in the park from an accessibility point of view. Seating and more social spaces, that came across all of those age categories, in more sort of incidental opportunities to congregate, to meet, to sit and share time, food, coffee, you know, whatever, but just coming together and have places to be. And then lastly on this list, but by no means lastly, indoor play. So opportunities, primarily this one for younger age children or primary age children, but actually coming together inside. And obviously we've said COVID aside, you know, opportunities for children to play and perhaps have more things set up for them. Do you want to knock on the next slide? Great. So those key findings, those recurring themes that have come out of the survey, along with our findings, I think it's important to mention here, alongside the survey and the consultation of residents, we've also been working on auditing all of Froom's play spaces and play opportunities from the point of view of looking at how conducive they are to play. Perhaps, you know, all the current opportunities and facilities in your parks and open spaces, and then thinking about what's missing. So we're gathering a picture from that work and we're putting it alongside the survey responses. And then we're taking that to the sort of next level discussions. And you'll see from this list, we've got 5 organisations, groups, if you like, coming together to discuss our findings so far, just to kind of check in really and say, you know, are we on the right lines? This is what the majority of, you know, the survey responses are saying from your organisation's point of view or that particular perspective. You know, where are we with these? Any other points to raise? Where, you know, where should we go next? There's also some other organisations that have been invited, but those meetings haven't been set up yet. So you can see we're kind of underway in terms of those focus groups, just to make sure we get the breadth of input really and thinking and covering all bases. Have the next slide, Laura, please. Great. Yeah, this just ties up what I've said about how we're auditing Froom, if you like, from a playful perspective. We think a lot when we're auditing for play about space, time and permission to play, and thinking about what makes for a quality either play environment or play experience, opportunity, whatever's on offer. From a playful point of view, is there the right space for it? And that might be, you know, size of space, but variety of space, and what's in that space from a physical point of view. So we look at things from a physical and a human element. So we think about those two things when we look at a play space. We think about the time, you know, what's offered when across Froom, who can access what, how flexible is it? You know, what can you, if you work shifts or you only get a second Saturday off and you're really into I don't know, playing badminton. Can you access badminton at that point? Or can you meet your walking group? Or can you do those things? So we're kind of cross-checking all of those things. And then we look at permission to play. And permissions is quite broad in terms of, it encompasses attitudes and explicit permissions around what's allowed where. That could be as simple as, you know, removing some of the signage around that perhaps gives off a message of, you know, play is not welcome here. The kind of, you know, no ball games allowed type signage that we find in some places. And it's about giving permissions. It's about perhaps older people giving teenagers permission to congregate because that's how they want to spend their time, you know, in a sort of social group. But similarly, it's, you know, changing attitudes of younger people towards older people so that they too can feel, I guess it's all coming back to, we're working around sort of belonging, connection, belonging, challenging those kind of stereotypes, giving permissions for play, permitting play in incidental spaces. So actually we know where you know where your green spaces are, your parks, your playgrounds. We know those are for play, but actually where else in Frome does more sort of organic connection and interaction happen? Where could a more enabling space in between sort of two recognizable spaces happen? So kind of journey of play, connecting areas across Frome. How do we bring people together? Then we start to talk about playful neighbourhoods. You know, we're talking about a playful town. People want vibrant streets, interactive streets, children playing out on streets, but also adults coming out and playing out on streets. Enhancing spaces, yeah, I guess. So talking about connection, belonging. So we're looking at all of this as one, you know, as the big picture. I've put those other organisations on this slide just to give a bit of a flavour of the other things that we pull from. 880 Cities is a great piece of work coming out of Toronto. Basically, if we get it, if a city or a town gets it right for 8-year-olds and 80-year-olds, then everyone in between is pretty much catered for. And that's about independence, accessibility. Quite often, you know, 8-year-olds and many 80-year-olds don't drive. So actually their access is limited to how they get to spaces. So they could be isolated. They might not be able to get somewhere because cycle routes aren't safe. So it's about connecting people to keep independence, sociability. It's about prioritising human interaction and claiming back the streets, because streets have been given over to cars and human beings have sort of been exiled, particularly children, to playground spaces. So that's, we're looking at we're using the work of 880 Cities. Age-friendly communities, there's a lot to draw on there in terms of older communities and what they want in terms of, again, connection, participation, choice, independence. It's about that sort of taking your valuable space up in your town, doing what you want to do, and feeling permission to do that and confidence to do that. Play England we draw on, and Playful Bristol, and there's a wealth of other, you know, play background. Next slide, please, Laura. Do chip in, Kate, or Nikki, if you're still there. I don't know, Nikki, I think this is your slide, or Kate. Is there anybody?
I am here.
It's like a seance.
That sounds better, Nikki, but I'll talk to this one for you. So Nikki did some work just to look at where the gaps, we were looking at where the gaps were, and lots of what Lucy's told us about, you know, those things that have come up are very much based around the things that people already have experience of, but people didn't tell us about things that they didn't have experience of. And in particular, we were interested in risky play. So Nikki brought an organisation called Woodland Tribe to Frome in Green Week, and they ran a series of events. And as you can see, it involved lots of hammers and nails. For me, one of the most significant things that came out of those events was that an older couple came to the one that I was at the Showfield, and they were in their 80s. And the reason they had come to the show field was because they had seen it happening in Eggford Park the day before. So the first thing they said was, we never even realised this space existed. It's like a country park, and we've never been here before. But they'd come particularly because they wanted to have a go with the hammer and nails. And I don't know if you've seen, but on the agenda for today, we've got a photograph there of the older lady standing at the top of the tower that was built that day. So she, they just took risk to the next level. And it was amazing. So, and what we heard, I heard in that 2 hours was just so many people saying, well, I never thought we could do this with hammer and nails, and I've never been around. They're literally adults pushing children out of the way to have a go with the hammers and nails and to get up to the tops of the tower. But equally, there were 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds having a go. So it was just the most inclusive event. So I think what we're kind of learning is that we also need to pepper in some experiences into this, so that we can see more about what is available, what's out there, and how people can access things. And just, it's really nice to know that somebody's watching us on YouTube tonight, and they have commented, as we've been talking, about how men's sheds offer those opportunities, or not just men's sheds, but just sheds in general. Let me find the quote here. Offer those opportunities for people to play, and the best work is achieved at play, which I think is a really great way of, summing up what we're trying to achieve with this. So, Lucy, did you want to add anything in terms of inspiration?
Yeah, have we got one more slide?
I think we might have.
Is there?
No, we don't.
No. Fine, go back. No, don't worry about that then, that's fine. Okay, so as well as the things then, yeah, I guess this links on to inspiration. The things that are coming through the survey and our auditing alongside, there are a lot of common threads in what we've been reading through the consultation and what we know in terms of what makes for good quality play. Definitely, I think that just taps into what you said about, you've got 2-year-olds doing this and you've got an 8-year-old at the top of a tower and hammer and nails and everybody in between. And I think there's something here about we can have great spaces, but people bring that to life, that the facilitating of those activities. So what we've been looking at and thinking about really in terms of what Froome needs is thinking about staffed play provision, a play organisation that can be that conduit, if you like, between those spaces that can be amazing. There will be lots of aspiration in there about in the strategy about how we make spaces challenging and stimulating, and perhaps take away some of those what's the word, prescriptive age barriers as well in terms of a play space, because it's the challenge in a play space that makes it, that increases confidence and competence. It doesn't have to be about age, it can be about ability, and should be about ability, so that anybody can access a play space. In the survey, we've got adults who want to go on the swings, we've got adults who want to go down slides, but actually it's about permissions, isn't it, whether you're allowed to do that in your local children's park. But if we took away some of those age barriers and some of those physical barriers and had more natural spaces. But even the best spaces and environments, actually, we need people in them. We need dedicated play professionals in there that have the skills and the understanding and are sort of committed to facilitating play, bridging those gaps then between, enabling users of spaces and activities to be able to practice things, learn things, for children to develop more confidence. The skate park has come up a lot in the survey and in conversation in terms of, if you're not a confident skater, how do you find the time at the skate park that fits in with your time of however your day is, whether you're under 5 or over 16 or whoever you are, how do you go and get some time there to increase your skill and your confidence so that you then feel able to use the park at busier times without fear of being sort of knocked over. So it's about how we bridge that gap, and I think that's about people, that's about having an organisation and play workers who can facilitate that. So they'll not only support spaces, but they'll bring that to life and, you know, increase that challenge and stimulation, which is what is needed in play spaces. Anything else, Kate?
No.
I've got loads of other things, but I don't know how long you want me to go on for.
I think that this is a precursor to a wider report, but it's also an opportunity for you all to ask questions, to feed in. I should say that both Nikki and Lucy were planning to be in the room today, but they have COVID in the house, so neither of them have left the house wisely. Apologies for the technical difficulties and the jumping around a bit, but you know, this is a chance for you to ask questions and to feed in. Anne.
Hi, I love this. I love the idea of the play strategy. I don't have any children. How do you reach people like me and give us the permission to play? Because I can see it's easier to get to adults through the children, either the parents or the grandparents. So it's encouraging people like me to be playful when we don't have the excuse of a child. And the other point was I was struck by that pie chart, and the 18 to 24-year-olds, I think, were the lowest people that had responded to the survey. And it's almost like permission to play is fine as a child, it fades, and then it maybe comes back again. And I think that maybe is linked to having children and then grandchildren in order to give adults the permission to play.
Yeah, how we do that, I think, you know, there's something in there about the strategy, building a brand, if you like, of Frome being a playful town, and how we get the message out there, that those messages of permission. I think there needs to be, you know, what's come through the survey as well is more events. It seems residents love the events that are on offer in Frome. So how can we piggyback onto those to model and to provide those opportunities? It's attitudinal shift, isn't it? It's hearts and minds. It's how do we get the message of permission in terms of it's signage. You know, it's almost as simple as who can play in this space. You know, anyone can play in this space. It's coming away from perhaps some of the prescriptive play equipment in sort of historical play parks and moving to more incidental, natural opportunities for play. You know, so if you're walking through wherever you are and there's a rope swing or there is something else that just it's about provocation, but it's about that provocation reaching everybody, whilst there's other messages coming through of it's okay to play and we can play and this is what play means to adults and that's okay. And playing could be, you know, working in the garden, reading a book. It can be anything to anybody. But yes, that is one of the sort of things that we'll have to work hard on in terms of, and the strategy will have to get that message out in terms of widening what play means. But I think, you know, because you have got a town that I think largely what's come out of everything is that there's a desire to bring people together, perhaps now more so than ever. And a lot's come through the survey about mixed age play, events and activities that bring families back together, that bring people across the ages back together. So I think it's also reminding people that, you know, for however old you are and whether or not you have children or grandchildren, we have all been children, and everyone in this room can remember how they played and where they played, and I could probably hazard a guess that lots of you played outside. There were probably other children around. There probably weren't any other adults really keeping an eye on you. And there was probably an element of risk in what you were doing, or a perceived element of risk from adults had they known what you were up to. And we all live to tell a tale. So it's about how do we offer that challenge and that adventure? How do we make it all right for everybody? So there's a brand to be built, I think, and it's about vibrant streets. It's about community. It's about intergeneration. It's about helping people have different perspectives as I said, you know, teenagers of adults, of older adults, and older adults of children, and how we, you know, do that. I don't know if I answered you, but thank you for the question.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Nikki. We've got a question, I think, now from Ali.
Yeah, no, I mean, fantastic aspirations and very exciting, but not but. And I guess the challenge is evaluating it.
Well, the next step. So what's going to happen next is that Lucy will and her team are going to produce a strategy. And then we'll need to look at what we implement and how we implement it. And I think the precursor to this was probably last time when I was talking about the fundraiser, and that next year it's likely that will be various things on the work programme that are subject to funding. But we think that the timing for this is really good, because play equipment, particularly wooden play equipment that was embedded 12 years ago from national funding, is coming to the end of its shelf life. So we're anticipating that there'll be funding out there for play equipment. And play has sort of shot up in the national sort of psyche again in the last year, 18 months, because it's so important and it does offer a mechanism for coming together. So we're anticipating various funding streams coming online, which will help us do some of the things. And then some of the recommendations that Lucy's talking about actually won't cost us very much, but we'll need to consider what the time implications are for that, so around communication.
I was talking about actually evaluating. You know, what are you evaluating?
So the sort of cost benefit analysis, if you like.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking.
And how we prioritise things.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about the community development work and how difficult and how slow moving those changes are.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really important. But I guess it's like how we can capture what we do, maybe for funding, but not just for funding. It's like justification for staff time, for the fact that there's an impact making a difference. You know?
And we're starting to see that in streets that are trialling playing out. So Lucy talked a little bit about playing out and closing streets for play. And we've got 2 streets in Frome that are trialling that on behalf of the county, so that the county can adopt an easier process. So that, you know, gives us some of that kind of baseline. What was it like? Yeah, you know, what's it like now? And then gives us a chance to check back in. And I think some of the data and some of the information that Lucy and Nikki in particular have been collating does give us some of those snapshots in time. So if we can continue to harness that, we'll start to see whether things are working, if they're reaching our objectives, without them being really big scale evaluation projects, which then have another cost and time implication. So it's just remembering to get those snapshots of information.
Yeah, anecdotal stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you. Question from Sarah.
It's not really a question, it's more just an observation that this should really tie in with the conversations we've been having about developing evaluation strategies for looking at the work that Peter Wheelhouse has been leading on this for and moving it forward. But there's definitely something to tie up those 2 sets of work.
Definitely, and we've been talking about that and what that can look like, so that we're just embedding some sort of simple frameworks into what we're doing, rather than doing big scale sort of consultation exercises really to evaluate.
So definitely baseline, just definitely any baseline of anything that you can kind of claw in right now would be extremely useful foundation for that.
And we're doing some work with County Council around gathering data, so we'll have some more robust baseline data as to go sit alongside that qualitative information.
Thank you. Question, Anita.
Yeah, thanks very much, everyone. I thought the whole idea is wonderful. I think it's just really exciting that we're getting young and old interested in play. And having worked for at least 10 or 12 years for Virgin, Richard Branson's philosophy was that we each had pinned on our desk a big badge saying, take fun seriously, because it means a lot. It's a great work-life balance reminder that we have to introduce that into our lives. And it almost feels to me as though we need to jump on the bandwagon that we had with check on your nearest 5 neighbours thing, almost to say to people, adults and children, like, take time out to play. Take your 5-10 minutes a day. Make sure you relax with one another. You find opportunities to just lighten up a bit and do something different and enjoy yourself. So I think there is an opportunity there to send that message out to the public in a really strong way. I think that would be good to do.
Yeah, it's the building of the brand, isn't it? It's what we decided on in terms of how we share that, spread that message. But it's vitally important for all aspects of well-being. And
Okay, I can't see any more hands up. Thanks again, Kate and Lucy and Nikki. It was really interesting. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Okay, we are now moving on to the last item on the agenda, which is number 5, which is the ratification, if we choose to, of the community grants decision. Now, is anyone speaking to this?
I'm Kate. It's the twilight slot, of course
lovely.
I'm speaking. Laura, actually, can you bring up the table? So this is for ratification. The grants advisory panel have met. We spent Monday morning last week looking at the grant applications. Took us about 2.5 hours and having some really detailed conversations. What you will see, we've highlighted it. That was my suggestion to highlight it, but I was actually just occurred to me I could ask you what the difference between the table on the screen is and the paper that you read earlier is, but there is a difference, and it's really important.
12 items referred to and 11 on the actual table. Do you want?
It should be the other way around.
Yes, 12 on the agenda.
Yes.
Sorry, 12 up there. 11
up there,
here.
11 here. Yeah, and the reason for that is, so you'll see these ones on the table on the screen and in the paper in front of you are recommended for approval. So the grants committee have gone through this process. So they're for ratification, actually, apologies, because we previously agreed that Paul actually approves the grants on the recommendations of the grants advisory panel. And on that basis, St Mary's Church, there is a question over it, and we have asked our auditors for clarification as to whether we can fund that. Because it's a church. However, it's important just to note that the panel discussed it and suggested that yes, we should fund that project. The merit of that project was significant in terms of community use. So we have included it here on the table, but it will be down up to Paul as we go forwards on the auditor's recommendations about how it is, if it is funded. So that sounds a bit complicated, but essentially we wanted you to know, and in particular the grants panel wanted you to know, that it had been discussed and it is recommended by the panel for approval, but there's a question mark over it.
Can I conscientiously object to giving the largest landowner in the country, Froome Town Council, money? I really don't see why the church expects small funds from small councils.
Are you a member of the grants committee?
No.
Okay, enough said, I think.
But I didn't even know it was a question.
Okay. Can I just ask on that? If it's a church-related thing, there's something that says Trio Paradise or Paradise, which is next to a church as well.
Yeah, there's another one, which is a series of lunchtime concerts that happen in a church.
No benefit to the church in any way?
No.
They don't sell tea and coffee?
Well, I haven't unpicked it in that detail, and it wasn't flagged by any members of the group. Okay. So, but it does take place in a church.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, Kate. So I've got the hospital pass for this one.
Scott's got his hand.
Scott, I don't see you. Sorry, Scott.
It's okay. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of make the comment that, Sarah mentioned there about an objection, and we did discuss that, and there were some very strong opinions about that. Some of us, including myself, felt, however, that sometimes you have to weigh up the benefit of the project to the community. And I think that's kind of why we came to that sort of consensus that pending advice from auditors, the recommendation was there that we possibly give some of the money. But that's it.
Thank you, Scott. Steve?
Yeah, just following on from Scott, actually, if you look, the amount that we agreed to give, the £1,000 rather than the 3,000 they requested, was because I think at the time the discussion was we would like to see a contribution from the church. And that was part of the discussion that we had at the time.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Thank you. I mean, Sarah, I guess from my point of view, as a fellow councillor, I'm not on the grants committee either, and we have to kind of, that responsibility is taken on by that group. We've agreed a process by which they meet, and I think it should be a democratic process.
I'm allowed to have my say.
Of course you are. Of course you are. Especially as you missed the first 15 minutes through no fault of yours.
I mean, to the invitation being for 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, I can't see any other hands up because I can only see one. Is there anyone else with a hand up?
Laura, can you just take the screen share down and we'll just double check?
Nobody.
No.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, everyone. Kate, thank you very much for putting that forward. So we are asking to basically deal with the recommendations at the end of the report. And these are three, if I can take them all in one go: to ratify the awards for community grants in Table 1, delegate authority to the Community Development Manager to ensure the recommended conditions are met and review the impacts of this funding as appropriate, and ratify the Mayor's grant awards detailed above, which are the two small amounts above. So unless there's any objections, can I ask somebody to propose? I have Steve, and then second I have Scott. Thank you very much. And then to vote.
That's unanimous.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for operating the screen successfully. Okay, I think that's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much indeed, all of you who've attended from home or work. Thank you for our guest speakers. Thank you to Sarah and Paul for organising this tonight. Our next meeting will be at 7 p.m, Sarah, on the 8th of December, either here or on Zoom. Thank you very much indeed.